speaking in French. You know, I come from a small place in Louisiana where it's called Cajun country, but my parents didn't speak English until they were well into like middle school. Unfortunately, they didn't teach me any French, but I come from a whole family of French speakers. You can see how animated he is. That's another conscious choice. Like, how far do you go with how animated the characters are? We struggle with this too. It's another subtle little thing that you've got to stay true to. You know, what you put on the whiteboard from day one, action shooter. You know, it has to be focused in one. And so one of the things we allowed the animators to do is just be creative, see what you can come up with. And they went with, you know, we use mocap for a lot of things, hand animate some things, really whatever works. We have to do this without sound. So vehicles, again, I told you, the people in town that react to you in a believable world, almost that Fable-esque kind of reaction. You know, I'm here, there's a purpose. I can't click on people. So if there's information to get, you can click on a person, you'll get that prompt. But otherwise, when you're going through town, I'm an outsider right now. I wanted them to treat me as an outsider. So it's one of our goals. Let you know where you are in the story by the way the characters react to you. And again, it's action storytelling. I'm not having to watch a cinematic or read a lot of dialogue. I'm moving around town and just behaving in this, what we think is a believable way, or at least what fits our game. The fact that the guard, when I first go there, he blocks me and says he can't talk to me.
Didn't people always say that stabilize the cost of water? Some new technology?
I can walk away or I can choose to listen, but there's always, we layer the town with all of this information as you move through the main story. So you collect little bits of the story. Even Sally, the bartender, her family, you know, we try to tie that in. Her family's been destroyed by bandits out of the wasteland. She pays you for everyone you kill. Those are just little side missions, but they help tell why the town is built behind a wall. If I won the big race, that guy there would have mentioned, you know, good job on the race. So you come in and it's almost frowns and who the hell is this guy? By the time you leave this town, you're a hero to them. That's the kind of progression we want. Outfitters where you do all the buying and selling. But again, for a shooter, it's a big risk. But the truest test is how we feel about it. We think it fits pretty well.
Wearing an art suit for a long time. Dangerous thing you're doing there. Be careful. Authority spots you and you'll be hallway in a flash. You best keep as low profile as you can around here. Don't let people know you from the past. Rewards are large for turning you in. But lucky for you, I hate the authority more than I need money.
See, she's reminding me that I'm wearing this crazy suit. You step out of, you know, something we call the Ark, but it's this little survival pod, and you look crazy to these guys. But it's a good way to remind the player without, you know, having to see a cinematic or read. That little game's come a long way. But again, this is something that we kind of fought over. Do you put a mini game, and if we're trying to stay true to that action shooter, and yeah, we think so, we think it works. But those decisions don't come lightly. You don't want to slow down the action. But it's almost like this is your grand inventory or your main screen. It's your launching point. You come back, you get the jobs, you get bits of the story, outfit yourself, then head out into the world to you know, take part in the shooting and the action elements. That whole section of town, everything vehicles. If you want to run different races, want to outfit your vehicle, you talk to this guy. And again, you get little tutorials from the guy the first time you go, because I've never been here. And it's, again, it's just all the way we try to tell the story. And the town isn't huge, and we struggle with that too. Do we want to put a huge metropolis? Do we even want it to seem that way? So we made this what we think is a tiny town, but in all of our focus tests, people get lost in this town, so it's almost frustrating. We thought we had this tiny little town that nobody could possibly get lost, and it's still a lot for the player to handle. Most of those systems, the subtle little tweaks in it, and I'm sure for some of you guys that have made games like this, maybe this is simple to you, but for us, we kind of struggle with what's the radius on that? How long? How do we know the player's going to listen? And then we finally just came, it was one of my kind of strong arguments. It's like, if the player doesn't want to hear, let them go. The player will listen. Just be comfortable with that. Don't use a camera. And so far, it's worked out. People, they'll listen. And if they don't, it's not that big of a deal. You can go and come back later, and they'll give you the bit of information you need. Another one of the characters in town. And you can see with all the main, that's deliberate, the overly animated, it's what we wanted. We wanted these colorful characters. We wanted, I don't know if any of you guys saw any of our coverage with Bash TV, but it's this big fat guy that sits on a toilet and he looks really strange, but that's what we wanted. We want you, when you talk to your friend at the water cooler and you say, oh yeah, I met the producer, I met Carlson, I know exactly who that is. So take the generic away. We almost like piggyback on the technology and do as much uniqueness and color, and we just push it as much as possible. This town is Wellspring, built above a well. The next town, Subway Town, is built underneath a city. We want the guys to talk different there. We want them to look different. We want them to behave, treat you different. Everything about it, we want it to be distinct and unique. And again, it's almost like that ability to uniquely texture the world. We kind of piggyback that and use it into design philosophy, character. Again, quick access to any of the ammo types that we have. The reason I keep mentioning that too is, again, the whole action shooter and that philosophy. You don't have to go into an inventory. And that seems like a really simple case, but again, it goes back to teaching the player the rules. We know, and again, that's obvious. You guys are developers. It's water and electricity. Yeah, that's been done before. But that's just the first step of how electrical is useful, and the authority later on in the game and why it's useful. But we just taught the player in a really simple case that we know is going to get, that's how that works. And that's what we do. We teach you, then it becomes a player choice mechanic for the rest of the game. You decide when and where you're going to use it. Same thing with the RC bomb car. Again, it's all deliberate. Earlier in the game, we teach you, you have the plans. If you find the parts, you can build and use these anywhere in the game. We could have made these and I think our first thoughts were, hey, let's make these RC bomb cars part of one level. You use it, then you move on to the next thing. But we made them, truly player choices, and they make a difference. You choose when and where to use it, but leave it up to the player. And you can see again with the uniqueness, these guys will, they're very acrobatic, again, very colorful. We did that on purpose. We wanted that to become part of what the Ghost Clan was all about. Nobody else does these types of things. None of the other bandit clans you run into, the mutants don't do it. The authority later on in the game don't do it. It's truly unique to them. Again, another opportunity for the player. see it again, exaggerated deaths. We have this combination, these really cool animations we can do for deaths, but it can turn into ragdoll at any time. That system was one of those things. You know, you're always in development, you're looking for opportunities, things that work, and you see something. When I first saw that, I was like, okay, that is cool. We need to pick up on that, and we've stretched it more and more. Even if I showed you a current demo, that whole kind of rewarding feedback. It's not like this is being recorded or any anti-violence people will see this, but we've added dismemberment and things for everybody but the Germans. You'd be surprised at the reaction. Our biggest cheers come from that, but it's not because it's overly violent. Maybe it is, but it's because that feedback, the feeling you get that you made that big of a difference. And you can see some of the, it's kind of emergent in a way, because you can go around, pick your choice, choose, to use stealth in one area or not. We learned early on with these the turrets, you put one down, the AI reacts to it. It's not something we directly pointed at or planned. But once it started behaving that, we see people manipulating that way. They throw a turret out here, flank around the other way. But it's made a big difference in how people play the game. More defensive players will use things like turret. More offensive will use the RC bomb car. And that thing as a developer, you need to do is like, that's okay. It doesn't break the game. It's all right. So I'm going to show a little bit of this wasted clan hideout.